Hey girl, hey, what's up YouTube? It's your girl Crystal, aka Serenity 1225, and today I'm going to be doing a video that is different from my other videos. You know, I'm always doing my Dollar Tree hauls, and I've started reviewing products and websites and all that jazz. So today is a story time about a relationship that I was in. I was in love with this person. He ended up cheating on me with a family member of mine, and there was violence in the relationship. So, disclaimer, this video is going to have a whole lot of cussing, honey. Yes, honey, boo boo, child. I will be cussing up a motherfucking storm. So if you're saved and sanctified, this video is not for you, honey. Go on ahead and click off of this video because I will be cursing a whole lot. So let me jump into it. I used to work in offshore banking, and I used to be around a lot of, rich white guys, and they used to treat the kid good. Like, they introduced me to fine dining and all of this and all of that. So this time I was working at it was a real estate company, and I didn't have a car. I was catching the bus with my daughter, who was in preschool at the time. And one of the guys from my history in offshore banking, he wanted to help me out. And what he did was he offered to buy me a car. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, honey. Oh, yes. He offered to buy me a car. So it wasn't going to be a new car. It was going to be a secondhand car. So I went to this place that was really popular for having like pretty decent cars or whatever, secondhand cars. And I picked a car. So I didn't really know anything about cars. So I had my older sister go with her mechanic and check out the car. And, she told me it was good or whatever, blase, blase. So the bodywork guy, the bodywork mechanic at this company talked to her, and he was like, your sister's name is Crystal, right? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, she works out at Gold's Gym. Now, I did work out at Gold's Gym at the time, but I had never met this dude before. So I'm going to call him Charles. I'm not going to use his name. So anywho, my sister comes back to me and she was like, hey, this Charles guy said that he fucked you. And I was like clutching my motherfucking pearls because I didn't know this nigga from Adam. So I don't know how the fuck he was able to say he fucked the kid. So anyway, after she told me, yeah, you can get the car is a pretty decent car, whatever, I went to go and pick up my car. Okay, so the car was like $8,500, and my white friend helped me. Well, he basically paid for the car. Okay, so when I went to pick up my car, the Charles guy, I approached him because you ain't gonna be talking about you fucked me and I don't even know you. I don't know you in the biblical sense. I don't know you from a can of paint. So I approached him. I'm like, what's up? Like, how you talking about you fucked me? I don't know you, nigga. Like, what's really good with you? So he was like, oh, my bad. I got you confused with another Crystal that worked out at Gold's Gym. And I thought that you were the same person. I was like, whatever. So anyway, he was kind of cute, okay? He was caramel. It was caramel color. And he had pretty eyes, and his eyes used to change color. One day they're hazel, the next day they're green. So I was really shallow back then. I'm not going to lie. I like me some light skin. It's the right skin. I like light skin guys. And so he gave me his number, and we would talk. And, when we talked on the phone, like, it seemed like we wanted the same things out of life. Like, we really wanted, well, he said he wanted to find somebody and settle down, get married or whatever. He had a son that was like the same age as my daughter. So my daughter was in preschool at the time, right? Okay, so she's 21 now, so that's a long fucking time ago. Anywho, so we were talking on the phone a lot, and I was really feeling him. Like, I was like, ooh, I'm feeling this dude. So we decided we were going to go on a date. So I got all sexy up. Oh, yes. Oh, sexy can I? Yes, ma'am. But we ended up driving around the island. We didn't really go anywhere. We were just too busy talking or whatever. And then, like we had this crazy sexual attraction. So we ended up getting a room, honey. And I got down with the get down that night. So he did end up getting the pussy, but it wasn't when he claimed that he got it. So it felt it felt so right, and it was just magical. Something about him was like crazy. Like this dude made me crazy. He was like a fucking drug or whatever. So anyway, um we never really went out to like dinner or whatever, but we went out to parties and stuff because he was a DJ as well. So he did body work on cars, and he was also a DJ. So he was in positions that he was always in contact with women, and I'm pretty sure he was a hoe. He was probably a hoe, like dead ass. Anyway, so I'm working at the real estate company, got my car from his company, and there was a lady that she was a chef, and so she would make lunch every day, and you could order, if you wanted to order some of the food that she was cooking, she would bring lunch every day, and you would pay her at the end of the week when you got paid. So when I ordered the lunches, I was ordering big lunches, honey. I was ordering steak and lobsters and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And I was jumping in my car and taking the food to him, like this is my man. Like I need to make sure my man is eating properly. So I would spend like a few minutes there talking to him, and then I would go back to work. I later on learned that this Negro was in a whole different relationship with another female. And every time that I would come off of my job to bring him lunch, as soon as I left, the female would come and they would sit down and eat the lunch together. Okay, can somebody say Crystal was the biggest ass? Okay, great. So anyway, we're dating. I think we were dating for a couple of years or whatever. I think that was the total duration of the relationship. But there were a few things that I can remember. This was before people had like cell phones. Basically he had a pager, and every time he came to my apartment, his pager was always blowing up and shit. And I'm like, who the fuck is like paging you? Like, who's paging you? What's going on? And so one night he came, and his pager was one that he could hear the messages. And so he was listening to one, and I heard a female's voice. So I just politely took the pager from him. And I lived my apartment was down this dirt road, and it was basically surrounded by bushes and whatnot. So I just took his pager and I threw it in the fucking bush. I'm like, if you want your fucking pager, you can go and fucking get it. How about that? Another incident was I couldn't find him. Like he always was doing like this like mad shady shit, and like I wouldn't pick up a clue. I was just real stupid. So one time I went by one of his friend's house, and his car was there. So I was like, this was in the nighttime. So I'm like, what the fuck? Because I was trying to find him, and he wasn't at home. He wasn't at work. So I went to like a few places that I knew he would be at. Like he would be hanging with his friends or whatever. So I'm walking past his car, and I see a female in the car, and I'm like, what the fuck? I wear glasses. So I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at here? What's going on here? So he was like, oh, that's just one of my customers. Like her car broke down and whatever, blase, blase. So this dude could have tell me that the sky was purple, and I used to believe every fucking thing he said. So he ended up moving in with me and my sisters. We had an apartment. Me and my sisters, we had an apartment together, and he ended up moving in with us. And he, like, to be real honest with you, like he didn't do anything for me. Like he didn't give me any money to help like pay my daughter's school fee or groceries or anything like that. All he was doing was living with me, wasn't giving me any money. He was always driving my car around. Like he would drop me to work and take my car, and I used to allow it. So I lost my job at the real estate company. And one day I was trying to take my daughter to preschool. And he used to have my car and he drove out all the gas. And so I ended up running out of gas on the highway. And I had to walk to the nearest uh, gas station, and I'm calling my apartment and the line is all tied up. I literally couldn't get through to my own fucking apartment. But he was home, so he was having a three-way conversation and I couldn't fucking get through. So I'm like, I got home, I walked home, left the car on the highway, and I'm like, livid. Like, what the fuck? Like, nigga, you driving my car, you drove all the gas out the car, and you didn't even have the decency to put fucking gas back in the car. I later learned, okay, that he would have my car, and every Sunday, the same female that I walked past who was in his car, he used to pick her and her mother up in my car every Sunday, and he would take them to the food store and he would buy groceries for her mom. And he was paying for her to go to school. She was studying to be a teacher. But he was living with me and my sisters, wasn't giving me $1 for rent or groceries. But you know what? The only person that I could blame for that situation was me, because I was young, dumb, and full of cum. And I was just real stupid. I was like, I love him, you know. He was always saying he didn't have any money, but it was a bold-faced lie, because he was a bodywork mechanic and they made good money. And he was a DJ. And basically every weekend he had a party to DJ to, but yet he didn't have any money to give to me. So that was cool. Anyway, he lived with me for quite a while, for several months, right? And the relationship just started to like not, it was just starting to sour. And I ended up reaching out to an ex of mine before him that I lived with, and we dated for like 3 years. And I was doing really, really badly because I had lost my job or whatever, and I didn't have money to like pay for my daughter to continue going to the private preschool that she was going to. And we didn't have food in the house and all this. But I had this nigga laying up on the side of me every night, you know, fucking me. And at the end of the day, he wasn't even giving me 10 cents. So my ex-boyfriend was like, he was beside himself. He was like, that's the type of dude that you with now? Like, this is crazy. So I was in communication with my ex-boyfriend, and he started to step up. He paid off the balance for my car. He gave me money for my daughter to go to school, groceries, all this stuff, or whatever. So we started to rekindle our relationship, me and my ex-boyfriend. And Charles moved back to his mom and aunt's house. And I was still like in love with him. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Like, I was back with my ex temporarily, but I still wanted to be with Charles. So I later found out that my niece told Charles that I was talking to my ex again, and I was back. I was kind of basically back with my ex. So I'm gonna get into the whole niece situation. So anyway, I tried to reconcile with my ex, but it didn't work out. We went our separate ways after that. And I wanted to get back with Charles. So I would like call his house or whatever. And one time I called his house and I'm like, you know, I miss you, whatever. And he kept saying stuff. It was like he was talking in code or whatever. He was like, oh, you need to worry about the fire that's burning close to home. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I later learned that my niece used to she used to go to parties that he would DJ at, and she would tell me that she was going to those parties to make sure that no other females were gonna be fucking with him, you know, because, you know, girls like DJs and shit like that. So I was like, cool. Like, I never thought, never to the ever that my family member would fuck with my man. Like, that never even went across my mind. Like, I never thought that. So that night I contacted him. She was with him. I didn't know that. It was later revealed that he was fucking my niece. Now, I don't know if they started fucking when I went back to my ex. Because really and truly, Charles wasn't doing anything for me. I was in a bad way in terms of like I didn't have a job at the time. And my ex was, he was providing for me. I had feelings for my ex, but I was in love with Charles. Okay, boom. Um, this dude used to treat me like shit. I'm talking about Charles now. He treated me like shit. Like he would be like, I'll be like, I want to go for dinner. I want to go to the movies or whatever. And he would say, okay, sure, no problem. I would get dressed the fuck up. I'm talking about I'm looking like a fucking 10. I'm looking like a motherfucking, okay. I'm all sexy up or whatever. And I would be in my living room calling his house. He's not home. He's not home. He's not home. And I would cry myself to sleep, like all dressed up and everything. And the next morning, I'll call his house. I'm like, what happened? He'd be like, oh, I was so tired. I got home and I fell asleep. And I would just believe this shit. Like, it was just ludicrous. It was ludicrous. It was fucking crazy. And I want to interject that it seemed to me like no matter what he did to me, I just would let it roll off my back. And he later said to me, now this is going to be controversial because, people have different beliefs or whatever. In the Bahamas, we do believe in voodoo. And we have a saying, we say that somebody fix you, which means that they would have went to somebody that does voodoo and they would pay them and the person would fix you and you would have like bad luck and all this shit or whatever, right? So he later on in life admitted to me that he took when he was still living with us, he took one of my dirty panties. I think this is when I started to talk to my ex again. So he went into the laundry room and he took a dirty panty and he took it to this Haitian woman and he said that he paid her $350 to work her Haitian voodoo on me or whatever. So it was so funny because you never gave me $1, but you were willing to spend $350 to have me to have voodoo put on me so I wouldn't go to somebody else, but you didn't mean me any good. Okay, whatever. So anyway, our relationship was him constantly emotionally abusing me. And I would just accept it. I would just, whatever the fuck he did to me, I just took it. When we first started dating, like he would brag about his son's mother and how he used to beat her. And I was young. I was like in my early 20s and I was laughing. I'm like, oh my God, like what did she do to make you beat her? Like in my mind at the time, she caused it, right? And then I thought to myself, oh, well, I'm different from her, so he will never put his hands on me. But I was quite stupid. I got a job working at another place. It was a union, and I was managing the place. And everything seemed right in the world. I was back with Charles. He was back living with his aunt and his mom. We seemed happy. And one day I picked up my daughter she was in primary school at this time. I picked her up and I dropped her off at my mom's house and I got a cell phone. So my niece called me and she was like, oh, I just saw Charles. He was driving around with a girl in his car and she was rubbing the back of his head. And I was like, oh no, the fuck she was not. So I was like, this shit is crazy. So I jumped in my car. I went to his place of work. He wasn't there as of yet, but he pulled up like a couple of minutes afterwards. So I approached him and I was like, who the fuck did you have in your car? And he was like, I didn't have anybody in my car. And I'm like, don't lie to me. My niece is not going to fucking lie to me. Who the fuck did you have in your car? So he looked me dead in my eyes with his his pretty hazel eyes, green eyes. He said, Crystal, I didn't have anybody in my car. So I don't know what the fuck. I was like, This is MMA, WWE. I put him in a headlock. He was in the driver's seat of his car. I put him in a headlock. Okay, I instigated this whole situation. So I put him in a headlock. We ended up tussling from the driver's seat to the passenger seat of the car. And he opened the door. We're still like throwing blows at each other. I still got him in a headlock. Like, I was kind of strong. You know, a bitch used to work out in the gym and shit. So he ended up gaining control. He was a man. He was gonna win that skirmish. He was gonna win that fight. So I was like, oh shit. This shit is about to fucking go left. So I took off my glasses because I'm like, Crystal, you're gonna get your ass beat. So I took my glasses off. This motherfucker lifts me up, body slams me on the ground. And I was like, ooh, child, ooh, child. And I had extensions in my hair, like the dreadlock extensions, the twist extensions. So he gets on top of me and he slams my head onto the ground. I think he slammed my head on the ground like 6 to 7 times, and he was punching me in the face. So I actually, this was happening at his place of work, the mechanic shop or whatever. So all of the guys in the back of the store, they came and they were like, oh, you know, get off her, whatever, whatever. And they were laughing because it was funny to them. Because I guess all of them used to beat their women or whatever. I don't know. So anyway, he was pulling my hair and punching me in the face. And I was like, you fight like a girl. Like, I don't know. I was head gone. Wasn't making no sense. So when finally this older Jamaican guy got him off of me. And I got up. And I lived literally right around the corner from where he worked at. So I went home and I got a knife. And I was like, I'ma fuck him up. Like, he beat my ass, I'ma fuck him up. So I pull up to the place. Like, I'm cutting a movie. Like, this is a fucking movie I'm cutting. I pull up to the place. I put the knife in the back of my pants. I left my car running. I said, because after I stab this motherfucker, I'm going to have to get out of here real quick or whatever. So I see that he was in the back of the mechanic yard. He had his son. His son was on a car, the back of a car, and he was playing with his son. And all I know is the devil was like, don't worry about it, Crystal. I'm going to take over. You take a seat. I ran up on this nigga, and he was like, he didn't even know I could run that fast. I ran up on him, and everything was in slow motion. I pulled a knife from the back of my pants, and I proceeded to stab this motherfucker. Now, everybody always knew that I was kind of crazy. They'd be like, oh, Crystal, she crazy. Oh, she crazy, whatever. So I guess eventually something like this was going to happen to me. So I remember stabbing him once, but it turns out that he was stabbed twice. And I guess it was fight or flight. And his adrenaline kicked in, and he ended up, he picked up like this piece of steel, and he was hitting me with the steel, and I ended up losing the knife, and he got the knife, and he was trying to stab me with the knife, and I ended up holding onto the blade of the knife with my left hand, and my pinky finger and ring finger were cut, and they were, my pinky finger was damn near severed. Okay, so what happened was, he was unable to like stab me because I was holding on to that blade for dear life, and he was pouring blood. And so the dudes in the yard at the mechanic shop was like, Charles, you're bleeding, you need to stop, whatever. So he had to stop because he was losing blood or whatever. So I didn't really give a fuck. So my younger sister, she was dating this dude who was a police recruit. And when I went home, like, I was fucked up. I really was fucked up. I had a big old bump on my forehead. I had a black eye. My 2 fingers were dangling like they were about to be severed. And he said, you need to go to the police station first, and you need to put in a complaint against him, you know, that he attacked you or whatever. So I went to the police station, and the officer looked at me, and he was like, you need to go straight to the hospital, and, you know, then they'll send us a report or whatever. Anyway, what ended up happening was I was filing charges against him and he was filing charges against me. The truth of the matter is, I put him in the headlock because of frustration, because my niece called me and told me that he was with another girl. And so the two of us had filed charges against each other. And I basically had to surrender myself to the police because they had a warrant out for my arrest. But my lawyer, contacted them and told them when I was going to surrender or whatever. And what happened was my niece called me one day, and this is like a couple of days after the fight or whatever. She called me and she called him on three-way. And so he was like, Crystal, do you want to know why she called you? Talking about my niece. Do you want to know why she called you? And she told you I was with that other girl. I was like, no, why? And he was like, because I stopped fucking her. And it was like, the whole world stopped. Like, I melted onto the ground, and I was like, it felt like he was body slamming me all over again, because I did not see that coming. Like, I never suspected that he was fucking my niece. And I guess when he cut my niece off, I guess because we got back together, he cut my niece off like she was jealous or angry or whatever. But basically, she could have caused his death and my death, because the two of us were in a knockdown, drag out fight. That was the first time he and I had ever fought physically, and we never fought again. But she called me, told me he was with another girl, and he was with another girl. It was the same girl that I had seen in his car that time. I later on learned that they were together like 95,000 years. And she knew that he was with me as well. But I was doing a lot for him. He had my car. I used to, when I got another job, I used to buy clothes and groceries for his son and stuff like that. And he was basically just using me. And when I first got my cell phone, I gave him my number, and 2 minutes later, a female calls my phone. My family members didn't even have my cell phone number. And she was like cussing me out, you're big, your pussy is big and all this shit, and what's she gonna do to me? And at first I was kind of, I was intimidated. And then I was like, you know what, fuck it. If she really wants to get down with it, like, come to my house, come to my apartment. I told her, I said, you have an open invitation to get your motherfucking ass kicked. So I cussed her out, and like, she wasn't about that life. Like, she really wasn't about that life. Me and her ended up talking, and she told me that the entire time that Charles and I were together, they were in a relationship. As a matter of fact, they had been in a relationship before me and him even got together. And she said that one night he was driving with her, I guess, in his own car, and he showed her where I lived. And he said, yeah, that's where that bitch lives. She lives right through there. He said, she's causing problems in our relationship. And he said, we should shoot her. We should shoot her. This is what she's telling me. She said that the plan was that he was going to stop and bring me outside to talk to me. And she would hide behind a bush, and she would come out and shoot me. And I was just, my mind was blown, because one, I never knew that he was in a relationship with this girl. I didn't even know her name. I didn't even know this female. I only saw her that one time in his car, and he said that she was a customer of his whose car had broken down. He was giving her a ride, and I believed him. So to know that they were plotting on basically killing me because I, quote unquote, was interfering in their relationship that I knew nothing about. I didn't even know that he was with somebody else. So not only was he was in a whole other relationship over here, he was also fucking my niece. So I guess the voodoo that he did on me, it lasted for a while. And then I said, you know what, I can do bad all by myself. And I decided to walk away from the relationship. it took a lot for me to walk away from him, because he would call me on my job. Like, I would always go to work really, really early, and he knew what time I would be in my office. And he would call, and I would always answer the phone, and he would be telling me stuff like, "Oh, you're a bad mother. That's good that your daughter doesn't have a father. Oh, I'm gonna kill you and your daughter, and this and that and this and that." And for a while, I was in fear of him. I really was in fear of him. And I finally broke off the relationship. I just couldn't take any more. And then one night, somebody came and stole my car. Let's remember now, I bought my car from the company that he worked at. So I thought, well, anyway, it's fitting because, the relationship was over. So I guess he had to come and steal my car. A few weeks later, the police found the car. The car was stripped. It was stripped down, burned down to the ground, and they were able to identify it by the VIN number. And they called me and they were like, "Oh, Miss So and So, do you want to see the car?" And I'm like, "What the fuck would I want to see the car for? Am I coming to pay my last respects to the motherfucking car? Like, I don't understand. What the fuck? What the fuck am I coming to see?" So I guess when that relationship ended, him and his goons, they came and they took the car and they burned the car down to the ground or whatever. But I was able to move on. I was able to get another car. Years later, I saw him. He was DJing at a club, and he had his girlfriend, the same girl. She was in the club, and he ended up ditching her. And we met somewhere. Like, he was like, he texted me and he's like, "I want to see you." So I'm like, "I'm leaving." And he said, "Can we meet by so and so?" And I went there, and he was talking to me, and he was just telling me all this shit that he was doing when we were in a relationship. How he paid somebody to work voodoo on me and all this shit, and he still loved me and all that and all this. And I was like, bruh, if that was love, I don't know what it is, what love really is, because that wasn't love. You know what I mean? So years later, he apparently had changed his life. He had gotten married. Apparently he was in the church. He had changed his life because a lot of his friends were getting killed and all this stuff, and he was saved, I think. I guess, I don't know. But we were both in this Facebook group. It's like a political group, and we were always like cussing out people because, if you have an opinion, people want to come and attack you for your opinion or whatever. And I was cussing out somebody, and he came to my defense, and I was like, "Oh no, bro, like, pump your brakes. I don't need nobody to come to my defense, because I'm a straight up motherfucking OG, and I am a savage, so I don't need you to come in." And so we ended up talking online. We talked about what transpired in the relationship. We forgave each other, for the things, that the transgressions, and we said sorry. And I think probably 2 weeks after we kind of got 2 weeks after we got the chance to forgive each other for the things that we had done in the past, he was killed in a car accident. And that was crazy. That was bananas. But, I felt like at least I got that opportunity to forgive him and him forgive me. And he died. I spoke to him that Sunday, and that Monday morning he was dead. So, yep, that's my story time. It was a crazy relationship. It wasn't love. I was really young, and I allowed myself to be mistreated in a relationship emotionally. It escalated to physical violence. With him, he was stabbed twice, and they were trying to arrest the kid for attempted murder. Okay. But we ended up dropping the charges against each other, and we moved on with our lives, and he became a better man in the end, and he died. I think he died about 2 or 3 years ago. So that's my story time. I hope you guys enjoyed my story. And you know what? Be strong enough to let go and wise enough to wait for what you deserve. So I guess I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.